Support comes from Kuyama Buckhorn in New Kuyama, California. It's Shifted Perspective on Sociology of Cars podcast. I'm your host, Shift. In this new season, my goal is to bring you other professionals that also live and breathe the automotive and racing industries. Through real conversations, we'll highlight diverse career paths, insider knowledge, and the mindset required to succeed. Today, I have another buddy of mine from Porsche, Jake. Jake, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me. It's psyched to be here.
I love it. Jake's background is drifting. We're going to dive deeper into that and all the nuances involved.
Oh, yeah.
So, Jake, how's your day going?
Not too bad. I'm going to be honest. It's been kind of a long one. Didn't get a ton of sleep last night, and I had off-road twice today. 2 sessions back-to-back, and then nice. POE, so definitely feeling it a little bit, but had a Red Bull right before I came in here, so I'm feeling jazzed up.
And for some that aren't familiar, define POE and some of the off-road stuff.
Yeah, so POE is Porsche Owner's Experience, and that's where folks with Porsches get to bring them in, and then we coach them all out of car while they rip their cars around the racetrack in our various modules. And then off-road is just standing in the sun, walking Cayennes around real slow around our off-road course. And that's tiring enough for 90 minutes, but then you got to do it for 3 hours, and it only doubles down. So it's definitely been a long one. I've been having a lot of caffeine today. So
nice, definitely. So you're ready?
Yeah, I guess you could say so.
Now, Jake, if you can share something that you are proud of you've accomplished in this year of 2026.
In 2026, I mean, as far as like drifting, not
anything.
A ton has happened.
It could be anything.
I guess I'm proud to be working with new partners as far as drifting and kind of having some new opportunities open up. I think that's always fun and like rewarding to see like, okay, maybe there is other support out there. It's not just me. I'm not fighting this battle alone. And then also I graduated college, which I think was something that is good to be proud of because It's kind of all I've known for my entire life is school. And so to finally be done with it is like nice.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you can, maybe some of the new partners, if you want to shout them out.
Yeah, I mean, this time I've been fortunate enough to work with Big Time this year. And so it's just cool to kind of be on a new stage per se. Like it's nice to work with not necessarily a corporate partner, but someone who's just like a larger, more well-known entity. And they're really nice guys. I think that's all what it's about. Like it doesn't, I'm proud to represent them or to be able to, show them off, but like it could be someone else and I wouldn't feel the same way. So yeah, I think it's just fun to have new opportunities and get more exposure and all that stuff.
Nice. It's always comforting to be able to work with people that you do like versus not like, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Now let's rewind a little bit. How and when did you discover your passion for driving?
I think it started back when I was probably like really little, if you want to get to the real root of it.
Sure.
Neither of my parents are huge into cars. My dad used to have like a 993, I think, back in the day, or maybe a 964, way before my time. And so that's kind of where his affliction for cars came up. And then when I was little, the first memory that I have from my parents, at least that I'm told of, is that I used to line up cars through the house, like by shape and size and color and all that stuff and brand. And I could name any car on the road. And then my parents, this is a great idea, I think, by my dad, would just like put on rally car crashes, like compilations on YouTube. And so I'd watch those. And I think that's kind of where the spark was ignited. I also used to go to Bob's Big Boy all the time up in LA.
Nice.
That was kind of right by my house. So it was super convenient to go. And as a little kid, my dad loved to take me there.
That's cool.
But then like it kind of fell off as I grew up because I wasn't really surrounded by it. My parents never really had any cool cars. I mean, my dad had a Subaru Outback. But that's why I liked Subarus to begin with. And I just kind of came back around to it when I started watching YouTube and playing video games like Forza. And so kind of through arcade games and sim, eventually I figured out that drifting was something that I was interested in.
Nice. And it was drifting specifically that gravitated you in that direction?
Yeah, I think I've always been interested in motorsport as a whole, but for some reason there was just something about drifting that caught my eye. Like I honestly can't narrow it down. Yeah, I think it's kind of a crude motorsport compared to the rest of them, but maybe that's why I thought it was kind of cool, is because like you didn't necessarily have to be this like big type of person and
like
have
polished,
polished and all that stuff. You could just kind of be who you wanted to be and make your own way, and that there were like many different ways to success, not necessarily so many different options, and you didn't have to succeed. That was the best part. Like, you can go to track days and it's fun. But like with drifting, for some reason, like at its most basic, a drifting track day is a lot more fun to me than a grip driving track day is. And I think that just because it's so much more reckless, I think that's what it all ties back to.
Yeah. Very raw in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see that. Now, drifting, of course, is undeniably fun. What were some steps that you took that, one, not only got you to pursue it, but also leading up to where you are actively competing now?
Yeah. I think it was just kind of all what I was influenced by when I like was first getting into it when I was like 13, 14. And at the time it was like watching Hoonigan. I thought it was super cool, and they would like have collab videos with various people, and a lot of them were drifters, and they would run this man line back at I'm forgetting what's called, like they called it like the Donut Labs or something like that. The Hoonigan Industries, like back in Long Beach.
Yes.
Or Donut Garage, that was it. And they would make various collaboration videos, and one of them was with this drift team called Animal Style, where they go out to Japan and drive in Mahon, or at Mahon, which is like a track out there. It's the Mahon Sea Course. And it was super interesting to me, like, cause just like the raw aggressive nature of the driving. And so I was like, this is cool. And I was playing Forza at the time, and I was like, this is like, I want to kind of adopt this into Forza and like, mess around with making cars drift on Forza more, because it was always something that I was kind of good at on Forza with a little controller. And then from there, it kind of graduated into like having my little Logitech G920 wheel on my Xbox.
Nice.
And I would watch like Twitch streams where there were like 5 viewers, and the guys were hosting drifting lobbies on Forza. And I would just drive with them, and like, it was kind of cool because I wouldn't like talk to anyone on a headset or anything, but you would hear the guy who was streaming like talk about you as you're doing it, which I thought was kind of fun. And like, you'd like be interacting via the comment section on Twitch. Like, I would be like typing in there and then driving, and he would be like saying it out loud. And so that was kind of fun. And then from there, just getting into a really cheap E36 to start out. And a lot of the time around then was going to see local grassroots days, which I wouldn't do a ton. I would go with my dad. I didn't know anyone who was a drifter. None of my friends at school liked cars. So it was kind of something that I came upon by myself. And then I went to Formula Drift Irwindale, which is pretty cool. And I got to go with my dad and my grandfather. And that was a lot of fun just to kind of see it. Like, I was like, whoa, like this is like the pinnacle of it. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, I can agree, I can disagree with it now. But at the time I was like, this is insane. The sound, the smoke, the amount of people, like the whole show of it all.
Right.
And so that was what kind of inspired me to like really get into a car, was like a combination of all that stuff. But I think the way my family dynamic is that for me to want to pursue something, that there kind of has to be a goal out of it. And so that's kind of how I got into the competition scene, was that it's cool, but it was too expensive to just be a hobby. So it had to be something that I was going to pursue, like a passion. And that was the only way to rationalize it to my parents, right? Like as a 16-year-old, like I had jobs and stuff like that, but like, it's totally not sustainable. And I wasn't driving all the time. But just, sometimes something big would come up and there was nothing I could do. And so to be able to make it make sense for my parents and like allow them to have me spend my money on something, it had to be like, well, look, I could make money on it down the line. I think that's just the type of family I come from. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
So in a way, you had to make a business proposal.
I mean, like literally, it was not only was it a business proposal, like showing them like, this is why it's worth it. Not only that it makes me feel good, but like this is what the benefits could be down the line. But also my mom is like very cautious about what I used to do. At this point, she's lost total control of me. I mean, there's not much that she can really hold me back at all now. But like I had to convince her like, oh, it's safe, one car at a time on the track, 10 to 15 miles an hour. Like, and it rapidly changed from that so fast.
Well, you got to convince her that was safe.
Yeah. I mean, like, when I live in their house, like I'm kind of subject to their rules, and I think that's totally reasonable, but
right.
I had to make it make sense.
Was a deciding factor money, or was it more so like that your well-being would be okay?
I think it was mainly like with her concern, it was that the well-being was okay. Like she was worried that I would hurt myself. Like not that I hadn't played sports my entire life,
right?
And had gotten a concussion before and all that stuff. But I think, like when you start drifting at its most basic level, it's way cheaper than doing like grip driving days. I mean, I guess you could make a grip driving day cheap too, but like, I mean, I started with an E36 that I got for like, I got it in a trade for a 240 that I had bought for $3,000. And it was ready to go. And I was buying used tires off Marketplace for $20 for a set of, or a pair, set of 4. And I would buy like a $75 4 rims that I found on Marketplace, or wheels. And like, I don't know what an entry fee to a normal track day is. It can range like to $200 to $400. Like for drifting, it's like $40.
Oh yeah, it's way cheaper.
Yeah, and so like that's why it was good to me. And at the time, I was like, I'll street drive to the track. Eventually, I broke it enough times that I was like, I want to rent a U-Haul truck and trailer. But that all came with time. So
you went about it pretty smart with a budget. You actually found some pretty good deals. Sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I was always like a scavenger on Marketplace. I think when that started, just because it was like out of necessity. It's not like I was just like handed a big credit card and like buy whatever you want and get into it. Like it definitely started. I mean, the car had. The odometer didn't work on the E36 and it had 290,000 miles on it.
Ooh.
And so it's not like it was a tired M50, the non-Vanos. It was a 92 sedan. But fortunate to been able to start with that and like really work my way through there. I think it's good to start with like something really slow. And like, that's like when you don't have the connections and you can't really make it make sense. Like the best way to do it is to do it cheap because that's where you get the seat time and that's what it's all about.
Right. Now you mentioned the was it E30? Was their first car? E36 was their first car. Okay. Now I want to touch on your cars a little bit, but was that the car that began the journey, would you say?
Yeah. So it originally started, I had, it was a single cam KA 240 hatch. I found it on Marketplace and I was texting with the dude forever. I don't even know why he was texting me so much. If someone did the same thing to me, I honestly would be so annoyed. And I went down, it was actually in San Diego. And at this time I was living in LA and I went down with my dad and my grandfather and we literally hired a mechanic to do a pre-purchase inspection. And the guy was like, it's like a pile of junk. But I mean, it was like a $2,000, $3,000 240. So it was like, what do you expect?
Right.
But it was good. It was, I didn't have my license yet. I only had my permit because this was like kind of right near the beginning of COVID.
Oh, okay.
And so we street drove it home, my dad and I. It was like totally stock.
Yeah.
And it was like my first ever actual time driving manual, and it was sitting in 405 traffic going from San Diego to LA. But it was fine. I didn't stall once. And then from there, after having that for a little bit and messing around with it, putting various mods on it, like my dad and I just kind of got stumped by something stupid. It was like a thermostat, but we like didn't know what we were doing, and it was just the two of us in our garage. And so when this E36 popped up that was ready to drive, I mean, it didn't have like a ton of stuff. It just didn't even really have modified suspension. It had really cheap coilovers. It had E46 control arms. You get just a little bit more steering angle. No e-brake or anything like that. Like it had a wide body on it and it was like, didn't have bucket seats. I think it was stripped though. And it was like, so I don't even know if I had the title for it, but I traded the guy, straight traded him for my 240, which looking back at it, the 240 is probably worth more money at this point.
It is now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it ran then too. We still just trailered it out to Bakersfield. But
did you get to drift the 240 at all? Or did you just go straight to the E36?
I don't ever think I actually got to drift the 240. I think it always had an open diff. But that being said, we did drive it. Like I went to high school in Calabasas, even though I don't live there. And like some of my friends were into cars there, but not into drifting. And so like, I remember this was still before I had my license, like my dad in the passenger seat cruising through the canyons with me and my friends, because some of them also didn't have their licenses either. And so their dads came too. And like, I remember ripping the 240 around there. It was so slow. I mean, single cam is really, really slow.
Yeah.
And I remember like, this was like, I didn't really have much driving experience. Right. But I knew what I was doing. I'd played a lot of sim and stuff. And so my dad, I remember like watching him grab the e-brake, like to slow me down as I'm going around some of these turns. I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to make us crash. Like he's just literally trying to keep me from going as fast as my friends were. I mean, they were like in Focus STs and stuff. And I was like in a single cam 240. So I did get to drive the car. I didn't get to drift it.
What was your first event they actually drifted at?
So I actually did like just a test and tune day at Willow Springs at the balcony.
Okay.
Again, I think at this point I was 16. But I didn't have my license still because of COVID. Right. And so it was my dad, my grandfather and we drove out to balcony and just like, it was a weekend, but it was just a test and tune day where you get the Willow Springs membership and you go up there. And we street drove the car to the track. And I remember I had my dad drive the car and I was in my dad's X3 with my grandfather. And I remember like making it a mile down the road from my house and like, we didn't even torque the lugs on the rear wheel. And so it was like to fall off. We made it though. And then I drifted there at balcony and like, there's no exact course at balcony. And so I was just kind of messing around. And at that time there were like it was Pro 2 back in the time, guys testing and just random other guys. This guy had like a Miata death cart and they were like pretty astounded with how well I could drive at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, no, I've just played simulator. Like that was all I did at the time. And it was a really bad one. I mean, it was really bad as subjective, I guess. It was a Logitech G920 on Forza. It wasn't like I was playing Assetto.
Right.
And So that's kind of where it all started. It was just at like a test and tune day, and everything went fine actually. The car like didn't get hot or anything, but that's when I realized I needed a bucket seat because it's so much scarier to drift in a stock seat.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the courses you've actually done once you got your feet wet into that?
Like over all the driving I've done.
Yeah. Like what was your next after that?
After that was Apple Valley.
Oh, okay.
Which is like still probably out of all the tracks I think in the world that I've driven, that one has been the most frequent.
Yeah.
It's just because there are always events there. I mean, every single weekend, 1 or 2 events minimum. Sometimes one's during the week. If there is an event, you can pay like $40 to $100 and you can drive all day, and there'll be no one there. You just have to reserve a spot ahead of time. And so it kind of sucks because I mean, it's in the middle of the desert, like in Hesperia, Victorville, like on the way to Vegas. But it's just like a kind of like no man's land, do whatever you want out in the desert. I mean, there are rules and you want to be respectful for everyone else too. But just like a perfect spot to cultivate like a good drift community in Southern California. And so I started like the rest of the events after that, started being there, and then would go to Willow when I could because it was closer to my house. But was scared of Horse Thief to begin with. Horse Thief is a big drifting track. And then from there just started branching out. But it's mainly just the 2 of those because, I mean, I'd have to go with my dad. I couldn't rent the U-Haul. I couldn't drive the U-Haul. And so he'd go with me and it would just be the 2 of us at events for a long time.
Right.
Eventually, every time I had the E36, I think my dad was there, like every event, probably.
What would you say if you can quantify the time? Like how much seat time did you get to where you realize yourself that you were actually good?
I mean, I think I had confidence since the beginning, right? It's easy to be cocky. And then also like having my family around me to reinforce it because they had never really seen anything like it before. So it's easy for them to say that I'm doing good. And I think it was just like, I don't want to say like hard work and dedication, but I just kept doing it. And like, it was fun. Yeah. Fun enough for me. And my dad liked maybe the bonding experience, whatever you want to think of it as. And so it was enough reason for us to go back, but I was never like, oh, I'm super good. The time that started to kind of happen was at this point I was pretty comfortable tandeming, like chasing other cars around. And I was still relatively new to it, but the E36 was so slow. I mean, the M50, like could barely keep up with people. I'm like clutch kicking 3 or 4 times each corner.
Wow.
And so I'm like chasing a guy, and when I look back at it, like these were not that good chases by any standard. But my grandfather was in the car with me. He was like, "What do we need to take you to the next level? Like, I can see you got it." Not that he knew anything. I mean, he didn't know anything about cars back then, and he knows a little bit now, but only because we've kind of been introducing him, and he's been around it. And so from there, we like kind of devised a plan to buy my S13. Because I had bought an E36 with a supercharger at this point, like pretty cheap, and it was just a pile of junk. I never drifted that car. I barely even drove it. I bought it, bought parts for it, and then sold it and sold the parts. Gotcha. And at this point, I was like 17 maybe. But then I bought my S13, which ended up being a tough road at the beginning. But I mean, I still have it to this day, I guess. So
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, touching on your S13,
yeah.
You've had a few cars. So if you want to give your lineup, what is your car of choice as far as drift muscles goes?
I think it'll be the S13 right now.
The current one?
The current one, yeah. It's come a long way. I mean, like, you know, it's always good to be like, oh, well, I could daydream and think of a better drift car out there that costs more money and is so much nicer in this way and, you know, hasn't been crashed into and all this stuff. But I've like had this car for so long, and sometimes I forget how much I actually like it. Like, I'm like, this thing's a piece of junk. Like, it breaks on me. Like, I don't want to have to deal with this anymore, but we've put so much time into it. It's actually a really good car right now. But I'm reminded when I drive it, like, oh my God, this is why I love this thing. Like, it's just so gnarly. And competition aspect isn't really where I see that. It like can kind of fall short compared to some of my opponents' cars because whatever, bigger budget, whatever excuse I want to make. It is competitive though, at least now, without a doubt. But like at fun events is where I really see it, where it's like, this is way too much car for this track, being Apple Valley Speedway. And that's where it's like, wow, like it's crazy to feel like I'm the pilot of this machine. Like in that it's like so much, like it's so fast and it's so smoky and it makes so much noise. Like it doesn't need to do any of the stuff. So because it does, and I get to see it at like the smallest of scales is like a lot of fun.
Nice. Now, so the audience knows what your car's like. Just give them a quick rundown of what your setup is.
Yeah. So it's a S13 Coupe, an 89. So one of the older ones. I bought it with a JZ in it. It had a 1J at the time, which blew up the first event I went to because I don't think the oil pump was tight. I don't know. I knew not a lot about cars at this time. But currently it's a 1.5 JZ non-VVTI. So it's got a 1JZ non-VVTI head. VVTI is like the equivalent of VTEC or Vanos, but in Toyotas. And that's from like the second motor I ever bought. It's the same head. At this point, it's built. it's not like ported or anything, but you know, all the valve train is done. And then it's a stock 2JZ bottom end.
Okay.
But from a GTE. So like it's got a good bottom end on it that I actually got brand new from Toyota, like in box, brand new 2J.
Nice.
And it wasn't that expensive. I found it on Marketplace from someone who worked at Toyota. But paired together, they're pretty good. It revs to like 8,000 RPM. I've got 2 different modes on it right now. Like the kind of everyday driver mode is 575 wheel, and the kill mode is like right around 720.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty fast.
Yeah.
It's mated with a GSR G-Force dog box, which is pretty cool, 4-speed H pattern. Right now it's a stock diff that's just welded, which is crazy. I blow about 1 every single year with that much power. And it used to be way more, but I have a clutch delay valve, so it lasts way better.
Gotcha.
But yeah, 1.5 JZ, GSR, stock diff. It's like, you know, it's got all the safety stuff, roll cage, fire suppression, electrical cutoffs, everything. It runs a Link ECU, Part Shop Max suspension in the front, and Wise Fab in the back. They make a really good grip kit.
Nice.
And yeah.
How about tire size?
So we run a spec tire in the series that I am in. It's a 265, 35, 18. And we run Zestino, which is actually a sponsor of mine.
Oh, nice.
But the 340 treadwears, they're like fake 340 treadwears. They're a little bit stickier than that. But we run them down like 12 PSI.
Wow.
And then I run like static an inch of toe in. And then when the car compresses, it toes in another inch.
Gotcha.
So for drifting, that's a lot of grip. Like the whole rear end is towing in and giving you that forward drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the front, I just run a 235. Nothing that special. Still Zestino, but...
Now, you mentioned competition. So what kind of competitions are you in currently?
Yeah, so the one that I like have been a part of this series is called Hot Pit Auto Fest, or maybe it's just Hot Pit now. But it's just like a drift championship. It's a 5-round series, and it got drivers from like Pro 1 Formula Drift, and sometimes from Drift Masters, like drivers come from all over the world. Don't normally, they're like guest drivers, all the way down to like Bro-Am is what we call it, like people who are just out there to have fun. And I've been a part of it for like 4 years now, maybe 3 or 4 years. And it's come a long way. Like at the beginning, my car was like piled, you know, it was not good.
Yeah.
And it was like still fine enough. I was also not that good of a driver, but now like the driving caliper is pretty amazing. Like it's definitely, it's not on the same caliper as Pro 1 FD is, because there's still people here who, you know, don't have cars that are of that caliper. I mean, I don't. But like, you know, you get farther into the battles of the night and it's some really good driving.
Nice.
So yeah, it's mainly in San Bernardino. And then we have a round in Vegas and Bakersfield. And that's like the main competition I do now. I've done other ones. There's this one called the Drift League, but they don't really run anymore. And so, yeah, that's mainly it.
Is your objective to get into Formula Drift?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the goal to begin with, right? That was me rationalizing to my family was that I would be in FD, which is something that I guess I'd still want to do now. Like I might say my perspective has shifted a little bit. But like I think I would like to be able to say that I competed in Formula Drift. I don't necessarily know if it has to be at the very highest level. It could just be Pro Spec, which is like Pro 2. But it really depends on situation. Like it's just, to me, it seems so difficult to achieve that because of finances or whatever. And just, you know, the actual challenge of it all. But I think in a perfect world, I think it would be cool to compete in Formula Drift, yeah.
How much do you need, like more car essentially to get into that?
For Pro Spec, I think my car is probably good enough. The issue is the operation cost. Right, it's Pro Spec, which is the Pro 2 level, which is the next step up for me, is a 4-round series. One is in, last year, one was in Atlanta, one was in like Connecticut, or New Jersey. One was in St. Louis, and one was in, I don't remember, somewhere Texas or somewhere like Washington.
So quite a bit of travel.
Kind of bit of travel, and then, you know, like to be competitive at that level, you're showing up, you know, 30 tires for the weekend, which is like, I'm almost at 20 tires a weekend now when we'll show up for a hot pit. And then, yeah, like you've got a whole team, like 5 guys with you, you're paying them, you're paying for B&Bs, you're paying for travel, like all this stuff. You got to figure out how to store your rig across the country. And then like, it's important that you have spares too. Like it just all adds up. You can do it really cheap. Still, it's expensive if you do it cheap. And then, but like sometimes if you don't show up prepared, like you're literally just throwing the money away. Like if your car gets beat up and you don't have any spare parts, then like you might as well have not showed up in the first place because you like want to set yourself up for success.
Right.
And if you're to do it well, like you're looking at like, you know, $100,000 just to do one season of Pro Spec, which doesn't seem that bad compared to like, you know, grip racing, various endurance racing championships. But like, I think that drifter is a little bit scrappier. Like it's a little bit, I don't necessarily want to call it an entry level motorsport, but like, at one point in time, maybe not anymore, you could just be a nobody who could make it pro in drifting. It's come a long way now with, corporate sponsors and people coming in from the grip racing scene. But yeah.
Would you say it's just easier for like the average person to just kind of jump in versus, traditional wheel to wheel grip racing?
I think so too. I mean, yes, I agree. I think grip racing, like track days, are equally as like beginner friendly. I think that drifters are nicer to each other at the most basic level. Like, I think that people are friendlier. They're more likely to come over in your pit. If your car's broken on a race weekend, even at my competitions now, which are relatively serious, if my car's broken, like 3 or 4 teams are going to come over to try to help me out. Like, I don't know if you could say the same about any endurance racing series. Like, there's not as much camaraderie, I think,
Maybe
between all
not
drivers.
to that extent, but yeah.
But like, if I don't have a spare part and there's someone else in the paddock who has the same car, like they're going to lend it to me, or, I can buy it from them. Like, people want to, like, so the way that drifting works, right? It's bracket style and competitive drifting. And so like, if you're battling someone and your car is broken, like the chances are that they're probably going to help you fix your car so that you can battle them before they even had the battle, because they'd rather fight you and win than just win by default because you couldn't show up to the line. And so I think that's kind of what shows drifting is scrappy, is like stuff like that.
I like that. Now, with some of the stuff that we've come across, obviously you've drifted a lot of cars. Your S13 currently is your favorite, right?
Yeah.
What are some, if you were to say in today's day and age, if you were to just get into it right away, right? Like, you have your S13, that's obviously more expensive now. For the average person that just wants to get started, would you suggest anything in particular, or do you have a certain go-to that you would suggest a newbie to try?
Yeah, it's like, you're not going to have the coolest car out there. You're never going to be the most interesting right off the bat. And I think it's important to like reality check yourself when you do that. If you really care about drifting, you should just care about the driving. The other stuff will come. And it would be 350Z, or E36, E46. Like, they're just good chassis. They just work. They're relatively inexpensive. I mean, you can get a built for drifting with quotation marks, nothing that crazy, for like sub 10 grand, maybe even a 370Z if you can find a good one. They're a little bit more expensive than that. But like, Z's out of the box. I hate the way they look. I hate the way they sound. They just work. They're not the most interesting cars to drive. You can set up any car to be an interesting car to drive. But like, back when I had my Z, I could just turn laps. I would drive it to the track with tires on the roof, drive all day long, like 200 laps, and then drive home and have no issue. And I could keep up with fast cars and I could boogie with the slow cars. Like, it didn't matter. E36s and 46s are really beginner friendly. Like, there's a lot of chassis support options. Same with the Z. Like, you can find whatever parts you want relatively cheap. And like, so, counter to what people might think, like, BMWs are relatively reliable if you take care of them. Like, I've had plenty of BMWs over 300,000 miles. And as long as you do the maintenance stuff, like, it's going to treat you right. Even if you don't do the maintenance stuff, it might treat you right. But you really don't need to do much to them besides like weld the diff and coilovers to get out there. And I mean, that's the same with the Z, right? Just weld the diff and coilovers, because the VLSDs are not very good in those things. But like, that would be it. Just get something like that. It's cheap. You can run cheap tires because they don't use as much, because they don't make as much power. A Z will use more consumables than an E36 or 46 will, but it's also faster. Yeah. So I think like, by getting a Z, you might have to spend a little bit more money. And I don't think they're as cool, in my personal opinion. But it'll last you for probably longer than an E36, 46 will. But I mean, people make them last forever. So
makes sense. Now, if someone got their feet wet, they got consistent, they understand their car, where would you have a newbie start as far as competitive?
There's plenty of series in SoCal now. I think like competitive is fun at a low level because like, it's pretty thrilling. Like, when you start giving more meaning to something that already had meaning. Like, you have fun when you go out there and just have a track day. And then when you do this competition, the sacrifice is that you don't get to drive as much because it's a competition. Like, that's just the nature of how it works. Not everyone can drive at the same time. But the benefits are that like, it's pretty thrilling to win. It's fun to win. Like, you kind of assign more meaning to it. And so that's fun. And so in Southern California, we have series like, it's called Ultimate Drift Challenge, UDC. And they run a really unique format where they allow, like, instead of it being like a traditional bracket style, everyone battles everyone, and whoever has won the most battles by the end wins the thing, like goes to the finals, which is like, I haven't had the chance to compete in one of their series yet. There's also like Flavor Express has a series, which is another event holder. And then like various ones come and do like, one shot events. But I think they kind of exist around the country, and that's like the most basic form of competitive drifting, I think. and it can still be fun and relatively inexpensive at that level. But I think if you go into drifting wanting to be super competitive and not having a ton of funding, it can be rather discouraging.
That makes sense. Now, you probably come across this a lot, but when people hear that you drift or you're a drifter, do they assume and correlate you to the DK in Tokyo Drift?
Honestly, I would say no.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever been, maybe once or twice, got the DK handle, but only because they've seen me drive, maybe. And I don't even think I'm that good, like, good enough to be labeled that. But yeah, no, a lot of people aren't really as familiar with drifting compared to like traditional racing. And then when you do, you reference Tokyo Drift, but you're like, but that's completely different than what we actually do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it has an allure to people who find it kind of cool or are curious about it, but to like the average person, it doesn't really mean much.
Right.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest misconception of just the drift world altogether?
I think a lot of people dislike drifting for the reason that I was saying it was good to begin with, which is that it's so crude and like that it's, there's not like, you don't have to show up in like a toter home and like have this super nice rig and you're wearing your matching fire suit to your car and you've got all the safety stuff. Like you can just go and have a good time, but also, you can have higher forms of drifting where, the bar is higher. You have to show up with like, be more professional and stuff. And I don't think that people always realize that, like realize how professional some of the competitions get. It's just like, oh, it's just a bunch of guys making tires smoke and they don't realize how difficult it is. Not that it's the hardest thing ever, but to get really good at it can be really tough. And like what it actually takes to do it all. And so I think it's easy just to like chip it off as like, oh, someone who like wasn't fast enough or just wants to mess around. But I think it's different. It's more like an art than like, not that racing isn't an art, but it's more artistic, I think, than racing is.
I can see that because there are numerous approaches to accomplish the same thing.
Yeah, I think so. But also because like the definition of success is like not as defined in drifting. Like I think, there's nothing more beautiful than motorsport and like watching cars at like the Nürburgring or seeing like just a lineup of GT3 cars like just ripping through the same few corners. Like that's super beautiful. But I think like drifting is like, it's kind of a balance between the both. Like you see the tires catching on fire when they're, wheel speed's too high and you just got the wrong mix right there. And like or the smoke everywhere or like people crashing into each other. But like, that's why it's cool. It's almost more of like an abstract art form. Like in professional drifting or competitive drifting, there's judging criteria. But besides like various like, zones or clips, like the rest of drifting is like what you make of it. Like everyone has a different style. It's not like, oh, if you don't hit this curb, you're going to be 1/10 down compared to everyone else. It's like you are free to do your own thing. And then drifting is so variable because you got one shot. In a race, how many laps do you have? Like, maybe 40 laps. Depends on the race, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
But like drifting, you've got one lead and one follow. And like, that's it. And that's in the competitive scene. But I think that like the fun of drifting doesn't necessarily come from the competitive scene.
Yeah.
That's like I don't know the passion, but like that's where, you can start to make it not fun for yourself is in competitive drifting.
Because you have to have the drive and the want to do it, of course.
You have to have the drive and the want, but also like, it's not fun to lose. And like, you're going to have to lose so many times before you start to win. Yeah. And like, it's really easy to get discouraged at the beginning because competitions were usually always going to cost more than it does to just have fun.
Yeah.
And that's where you lose it.
Would you say that crashing, like getting over your first crash is what makes you better at drifting?
I mean, I guess. I think it depends on your situation. Like some people go out there and they're like, I don't care if I crash. I'm just going to like throw the entry as hard as I can every single time and eventually it'll stick. And like, okay, that's cool if you're reckless and like care so much that other people see you drive hard and not be like, as analytical about it. Like, okay, what do I need to do here to like take it to the next level? Like I know some people who will throw it as hard as they can every single time and eventually stick it and then they'll have it down. But I'm more of like I'm going to like keep pushing the envelope and like work it more and more until I get that run that I'm satisfied with. And it's because, I don't really like, even now with like a relatively professional car and team and everything, like I don't have a ton of spare parts. Like I can't afford to go smash the car into the wall. Like if I total this thing, like I don't know what I'm going to do. And so when you're starting drifting, it's easy to think that you're invincible and the car's invincible. And then at least for me, like I'm like, well, reality is like, it would be such an ordeal if I had to fix all this stuff that it might prevent me from drifting. And so like, maybe that's why I dial it back a few notches sometimes. But yeah, I think it is important to crash. Like that's how you learn. Yeah. So yeah.
Now for someone getting started, just so that they understand numbers, what would you say that's a decent amount of money to get started in drifting? Like maybe just to gauge any kind of amount.
Yeah, I mean, like in any form of drifting, like
I
just
guess, like,
fun days.
Outside of the car, like let's just say you found a $5,000 car. What would it take for you to just sustain that, just to get started? Like your consumables and just gas and all that. What would you say is a good round number?
Well, I'm gonna have to add it all up live here.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, first of all, it kind of depends on the car. Like stuff is only consumable when it's consumable. Like, okay, well, this car always throws belts. Like, okay, then belts are consumable. Or, I have a janky radiator. Like, okay, then maybe your head gaskets are consumable.
Right.
And so that costs a lot more money. But if you sort yourself out right the first time, like I definitely have learned to live by the strategy, buy once, cry once. Like spend the money to begin with, even though sometimes it's hard. And you can get away with going the cheap way a lot of the time. But like from having to buy it the first time and then realizing that it wasn't good enough or it breaking and then having to buy it again, it was like, dang, I should have just got it the right way the first time. But I think that doesn't necessarily apply with drifting all the time because you don't always have to have the nicest stuff. Like you can just go in a stock car and say you bought it with coilovers and you have a buddy who knows how to use your flux core welder from Harbor Freight and he welds a diff for you. Like you can go, and I mean, back when I started pre U-Haul even, I would spend $40 on tires and $60 on gas and $40 on an entrance fee. Like that's it. There's your consumables: entrance fee, tires, gas. I mean, you could say, well, I guess oil's a consumable, like wear and tear on the engine, various things, but like it's really not like crazy expensive. It's not like a lot of people do daily their drift cars, and I would argue that it is tougher to like on a daily to drift it than it is to like grip drive it. Yeah. But I think that comes from like just how hard it is on the cars. But I think you can do drifting cheap. That's like the beauty of it. You can do grip racing cheap too, but there is kind of a high entry cost to do like a track day.
Typically.
Where drifting can be quite cheap. And then like a lot of people do it on the street, which, I guess people, rip canyons and stuff like that. So it's all like what kind of what are your priorities? But you can do drifting cheap is the thing.
That's fair. Now, you mentioned Big Time, and they've obviously sponsored your S13. What is their trajectory for you coming up in this year or maybe in season?
Honestly, not super sure. Like we don't have anything set in stone. I don't think any of the whole, deal with quotation marks was set in stone. It was kind of just like they're nice guys and they seem to like me and vice versa. And so we just decided to kind of work together on this stuff, but I don't think anything's guaranteed. I think to think anything in life is guaranteed is kind of a bad way to think about it because you set yourself up for failure. I think I'd like to, continue to work with them and move forward and try to see an upward trajectory in my growth as a drifter. And then to kind of have them, by my side with that stuff. But I don't think there's anything necessarily set in stone that would be worth like, this is what needs to happen because we don't really talk about it like that much. It's more just like, you guys do your thing, I'll do my thing, and everyone be good representatives of everyone. So
nice. That's fair. Now, Jake, overall, what would you say total cost in your S13 right now?
That's an expensive one. It's especially because like I've gone through 3 or 4 motors and transmissions and, so many diffs and stub axles, like it all adds up. And like, this depends, like, is this just for parts for the car?
Everything. Do you think you're still in the 5-figure mark or have you passed the 6?
I think we're probably into the 6-figure mark.
6-figure, okay.
And over 5 years of drifting and the car like becoming what it was. I mean, they're like definitely, no, I'd say maybe still sub 6-figure. Like buying the car itself was an initial investment and then, putting nicer stuff in it. And it's mainly the motors blowing up. But like, yeah, definitely sub 6 figures. But I'm very fortunate to have like a good group of guys around me that are super supportive and want to help me with it all because I'm not super mechanically savvy. Like I can get my way around a car, but like I definitely couldn't build the car that it is now. And so I'm fortunate to have like a ton of friends who not only want to do it with me and want to see my growth, but like can make it work with what I have to make it work. Like I can't afford to pay them a ton of money to do it or sometimes any money at all. And so they, do it out of their own, the good in their hearts to like want to help me out. And so I'm super appreciative of them. But I think that's like probably the only reason I am where I am now or I'm able to achieve what I am now because I have this group of people. Like if I had stayed doing certain things or didn't change, necessarily the people around me or what the plan was with the car, like it wouldn't, like I would still be living in LA and the car wouldn't work and I wouldn't be, getting into like battles at comp because I'd be breaking in practice and like, so it's all who you surround yourself with, I think, that helped me get where I am now.
Nice. Would you say a community is just as important as having a solid car?
I mean, absolutely. I think. I mean, you can do it all yourself if you really want to, but that's like, you kind of ruin drifting for yourself. Like as you progress in drifting, you start to get into tandeming, which is other people. And so like the cool part about drifting, and I imagine this happens in grip racing too. It's like, but you could meet someone for the first time and you're actually on track and you've never talked to them, and it's just you guys driving together and you're just having so much fun with a person that doesn't really exist in your mind yet. It's just a car. But then you come into the pits and you're both super jazzed because you just done a bunch of great laps together. And like, so that's what it's about. And then you're just kind of grow your web of friends you've driven with, and you meet other people around the pits, and like, some guy next to you asks to borrow a tool, and like now you're friends. And like, that's, I think, the beauty of drifting is that like a lot of people are figuring it out themselves and aren't like, there's definitely influence from their friends to get into it, but a lot of people do it by themselves. And so it's easier to meet other people and like build communities yourself, and that like everyone for the most part is super welcoming in drifting. There's definitely different aspects of drifting where people can be more like closed off to those around them or be more judgmental and stuff like that. But I think
sort of like gatekeepers.
A little bit of gatekeeping. Like it's just, I think it's like a respect thing. Some people think they're just better than other people, or or associate certain people with just bad things because it's just not the way that they would do it. And so like, I think that happens. I think drifting can like kind of draw in a bunch of different crowds of people, and it definitely gets seen. Like everyone's got their own little niche with what type of drifting you do. And so people can kind of be biased to like what they like is the only thing that's cool, and anything else is stupid in that, and that you're lame because you don't do that. And so that can happen in drifting, and it can be kind of cliquey, but I don't think it always is. Like, I think to get into drifting at the ground level, you'll never really experience that stuff. And that's like that's how you get into it. As you progress, you might see it, but even then I think it's totally possible to avoid it.
Nice. That's fair. Now, Jake, what would you say is next for you?
Right now, I mean, it's just kind of doing the same old stuff right now. Like, I want to stay sharp, I guess, with drifting, but also at a rather pivotal moment in my life where it's important that I like lock down my future kind of. And if that means backing off a little bit from drifting, then that might have to be the case. Just because if drifting's something that I want to be able to continue to do for the foreseeable future, I have to figure out a way to fund it and to make it fit into my life. So if I can't fund it and I can't fit into my life, then I'm not going to be able to drift. So like sometimes it's important to take a step or two back. With that being said, it's not like I'm really driving many less events. I was busy with school and, finals and stuff like that. And so the past few months I've been rather dormant when it comes to drifting. But that doesn't mean I'm not around it at all. Like I think if you're in drifting and you have friends, like you're around it all the time. So I guess the future is kind of not completely set in stone for me. Competitive drifting, if I can figure out a way to make it work, then maybe moving up a level and going into pro spec, but there's like absolutely no definitive answer on if that'll happen. So I think what's next for me in drifting is finding the fun again. With competitive drifting and doing all the whole deal is like, it costs a lot of money and you don't really drive that much at competitive drift events. You get anxious. You're worried about hitting the wall. You're worried about like, oh, I've got to battle a pro guy. Like I might as well not even go battle because it's not going to be fun. But it is always fun. That's the thing. And you get, hyped up to go battle someone that maybe you idolized or stuff like that. And I don't necessarily know it's happened to me that many times, but just like you get more used to it as you go on. But I think the heart of drifting is like doing it with your friends or meeting people through it. Like I forgot how fun drifting was when you're not competing. Because we kind of talked about this earlier. Competition gives it meaning sometimes, but then also that's like an objective, it's kind of an objective meaning. Like, okay, well, there's a goal. Like you can win money if you win a competition. So like that's a reason to do it. Whereas when you just like are doing a grassroots event or just having fun, like there is no reward. You're just going there to spend money, but the reward is the subjective reward, which is you having fun with your friends and making connections with other people. And like some of the most fun I had in drifting was this past December, and there's this event called Winter Jam every single year, which is a huge drift event at Sonoma in Northern California. And there's like 300 drivers, sometimes 400, and it's like just a big, like not like a festival of drift, but just a ton of drifting, a ton of different types of people. And like as your car gets more expensive, you get a little bit tentative of who you drive with. And so sometimes that's led to me like backing away from driving with other people because I'm worried about if I get crashed into, if I mess up, I won't be able to fix it. And so that can sometimes lead you to be a little bit closed off. But I had the opportunity to drive with some of my good friends again up there and do this team tandem comp, which is like, instead of it just being a one-on-one competition, now it's a group of you guys, and it was 3 of us. and you're judged based off how well you move together as a team, which is cool because I don't know what the guy in front's doing, but I'm the last car. There's one car in the middle, my friend Julian, and our friend Travis is in the front, and like we have to lead all together and make it almost look like synchronized dancing. And so that was super fun, and we ended up winning. This was the second year in a row we won, but like it had been, I guess this last year, like 2025, was me kind of backing away from like other people and being afraid almost. And so in like having that kind of finish off the year, because it's always in December, was a great thing for me to remember, because we had to like hammer out 10 runs back to back to back to back, because you're competing against other teams and teams get knocked out and they make you do it one more time and all this stuff. And so that's when I like remembered. I was like, whoa, this is like why I fell in love with drifting. It's like I'm like the feeling that you get when you hop out of the car and you get to like hug your boy because you just did like the gnarliest lap and you're so excited with how well everyone worked together, because there's a lot of like chance and luck in it every single time. Like you can have the skill and stuff like that, but it's different. Like stuff happens, especially when there's all three cars are moving together, or sometimes more than that. Like for it to all work out, like the probability is quite low. And so for you to make it work time and time again, it's like you're just, you know, it gets not necessarily like emotional and like I'm going to cry about it, but like you just feel really good about it because you're like, I was able to do this and share it with other people. Like that's the fun part.
That's amazing. My takeaway is that one, you have to have balance, right? But two, you have to really love it. Because if, like you said, at some point you start to lose the fun, then you're wondering, well, why am I doing this? Because then that's probably the probably worst case scenario, right? That's a bummer if you start to lose that fun aspect, but it seems like you started to find it again. So I'm happy for you. And everything that you've shared has been, I think is very enlightening, and hopefully the audience agreed. So Jake, if people want to find you, reach out to you, have questions, where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you, man. It's Jake Slides _ on Instagram. Feel free to shoot me a DM if you have any questions or you're looking to get into drifting. But yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about, right? I think that's what all motorsports is about. Like, it's fun to like think of it as a career and like you can make money out of it, but like have fun. That's what it's all about.
Definitely. That actually jogged a memory of mine as a kid. You know, I grew up playing a lot of sim racing games, but also just different drifting, whether it's Need for Speed, you know, different rally games and such. I would mess around in my little karting. I had a karting phase when I was small, but it had a little e-brake. But you can just do a lot of different things. But for some reason, for me, that was the most fun. I didn't know what it was, no idea what it was called until I got older. And then I realized, oh, drifting's a thing. And I think when it comes down to it, it has to be fun, right? Otherwise, why do it at all?
Yeah.
But I think that's what drives us. So that's awesome. Shifted Perspective is produced by Sociology of Everything, supported by Kuyama Buckhorn in New Kuyama, California. I'm your host, Shift. Please feel free to reach out to me on social media found in the description, or email me at shift@sociologyofeverything. Together, we shift perspective, expand possibilities, and become insiders. Thank you so much for listening, and see you guys next week.